Bom dia. We are so happy you're here. Welcome to Dimension Sciences Entrepreneurship Dialogue with Claudia Mitchell. I'm Pamela Villars. I'm moderating today's call. Dimension Sciences, if you don't know, mission is to increase the inclusion of minorities in science by fostering higher education and innovative research. And we do this through scholarships and mentoring programs. And I'm thrilled to tell you that all of the 7 scholars that Dimension Sciences is currently funding are here today to participate in the program, as well as many of the mentors that also are volunteers for the program. Dimension Sciences is also committed to increasing public awareness of science education, and science advancement. And so this dialogue is the first in our public series. Thank you for joining us. We'll start with a conversation with Claudia and then take your questions. We'll use the chat box, so please send your questions to me. And after Bob and Claudia finish their conversation, she'll be around to answer your questions. Finally, we are recording this session, and you'll receive the recording sometime after the call. If you know anyone who might be interested in the call, please send it. We want you to share what you've learned. We want you to share information. We want to spread the word. So now let me introduce Bob Chapman. He'll be interviewing Claudia. Bob is a founder and board member of Dimension Sciences, and he has more than 25 years of experience in public policy and grassroots advocacy in the United States. Additionally, he's worked globally for much of those 25 years and is currently working with several nonprofits globally. Bob also always says that he's passionate about changing the world for good. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Pamela. Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on where you are calling in from today. We have a very special program for you. And I am very pleased to welcome Claudia Mitchell. So if you hear me pronounce her name Claudia or Claudia, there may be something wrong with your computer. So you may want to work on that, but it's the same thing. So, but welcome, Claudia. That's my Carioca accent coming into play here. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Also want to give a shout out, if you will, to all of our researchers from Brazil, our 7 incredible scholars that are joining us. This is really for you. Everyone else is just listening in. So listen carefully, prepare your questions, send them on to Pamela. And we are going to sort of explore Claudia's background and her incredible career trajectory and bring us right up to today, etc. So Claudia is, it is 6 o'clock in the morning where Claudia is at the moment. But that's the good news. The bad news is she just arrived from Tokyo a few hours ago. So it's been a very long day, night, afternoon, morning for Claudia. So we really appreciate your joining us. Welcome. Let me just briefly, the whole purpose of this 1-hour webinar here is to explore Claudia's career trajectory. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with her background because that's the whole purpose of our interview today. But I will say that, some 20 years ago, Claudia arrived in Paris, France, to pursue a doctorate in molecular biology. And on top of that, she had a 4-month-old newborn baby with her. And so that's going to be discussed this morning or this afternoon as well. She also went on to create Universal Cells as an entrepreneurial, as a woman, as an immigrant. And she has now joined Astellas Pharma as a global executive and vice president of product strategy for Astellas based in Japan. So welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you very much.
So we have, again, our 7 scholars are joining us, and they are going to be very interested in your career, in your education, in your background. and the current role that you fulfill as a global strategist, as a woman entrepreneur. And we want to go back in time, if you will, to learn how you got here. So let's start off with your current role as at Astellas. What do you do as Senior Vice President of Product and Portfolio Strategy at Astellas?
Good. Well, first of all, nice to be here talking to everybody, and very happy to be talking to young fellows that, starting their careers, and hopefully inspire them to go forward and pursue a nice career in science. So at Astellas, I've joined Astellas after my company got acquired by Astellas 2 years ago, and last year I moved to the headquarters in Tokyo, where I'm, as you said, Senior VP in Product and Portfolio Strategy. And what I do is I oversee Astellas' entire portfolio of drugs, from the beginning to when the research is nascent, to the end when we are commercializing the products. So everything that goes into Astellas goes through my department, and so it's a very exciting job, because we see all the innovations coming in and manage the portfolio, how we want to have a balanced portfolio. So it's a very exciting job, because we get to see everything that Astellas is doing, all the innovations.
Terrific. So so that's where you are today, but I want to take you back now, Claudia, to the beginning. You're a young woman in Rio de Janeiro, and you begin thinking about, what do you want to do when you grow up? So tell us sort of about that moment in your life when you started to think, I want to be a scientist, or this is what I want to do when I grow up. And let me know, could you see yourself then where you are today? Tell us about that, what was in your head at that time.
No, that's a good question. And it goes back a long time ago, because when I was 13, I decided that I wanted to be a geneticist. Whether or not I knew what a geneticist was is a different thing. I don't think I quite knew what a geneticist was at that time, but I had a very vague idea, and I thought that it was cool, and I wanted to be one. Did I see my trajectory at that time? Absolutely not, right? Things really change over time, and I have there are a couple of people on this call who have met me when I was 19. So a few years after I had that dream. So I was starting my career, and I started my career in the same lab as those two people. So it's fun to see them back here and as witnesses of those early days. So it's very heartwarming to see that. And so yeah, no, the career did evolve throughout my the years, and my intention was to be an academic scientist. And I did that, but I realized that soon after I got my faculty position that it was not what I wanted. So I had spent from 13 to 33 pursuing that dream, got that tenured job, and realized, no, that's not for me.
Right. Amazing. So you are a native of Brazil, born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, a city that I have also lived in way back when. Tell us, what was it like in Brazil at that time to consider, as a woman, to consider a career in science? Was it an easy decision for a woman at that time, or were you already thinking like an entrepreneur at such an early age?
I definitely don't think I was thinking of it as an entrepreneur, but one thing that strikes me as a contrasting thing in Brazil is that I've lived in Brazil, in France, in Denmark, in the US, and in Japan. And of course, Denmark is very gender neutral, so that's not an issue. But Brazil, even though it's not gender neutral, you could see that it's a country where there is a lot of machos, and there is a big difference between the genders. I never felt growing up, and that being a woman was anything different than being a man. Having a career in science was not something that was, oh no, not for a woman, or not for, it's like, so that was never something that I felt. I felt that more in the US and in France than I felt in Brazil. And a fun thing is that my lab in Brazil, we were mostly women. So it was it never crossed my mind that a woman would be any different from a man when I was starting my career in Brazil.
So, and you just mentioned that for educational reasons, for career reasons, family, etc., you have lived in now 4 or 5 countries that I'm keeping track of. 5?
5 countries.
Right. So Brazil, United States, Denmark, France, and Japan now. Correct. So tell us, how has that shaped your life, your thinking? You're on your 7th language now. That's amazing. But tell us, how has that shaped your life and your career? The idea of traveling, or I should say living in so many different countries and different cultures, different languages. Explore that with us.
That has shown me, given me a lot of different way of thinking, or acknowledging that there are different perspectives, and that is always good in your private life, but also your professional life. Understanding the different cultural differences, and beyond cultural differences, you start seeing that it's okay to have a different perspective, and beyond cultural differences. So it makes you a more open-minded person. And flexible too. So that's what it brought to me.
You were 13 years old when you decided to become this something that you didn't quite understand what a geneticist was. That's fascinating. But was there something or someone in particular that inspired you at such an early age? And how and why?
I've never had one person who inspired me. I had a lot of people who inspired me, and I've always saw in people around me, and I saw, oh yeah, this person's doing that. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna do that too. I want to do that too. So I've been inspired by many, many, many people, and most of them people around me, people with whom I've worked, people that I know. So I don't have that, big figure that I want to emulate, but I've taken a lot of inspiration from the people around me.
Wonderful. So again, let's go back to Rio. You are at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. You're studying science. What was science education like at that time compared to what it is today, not just in Brazil, but globally?
Well, I think that at the time when I was doing research in Rio, it was in the 90s, early 90s to mid-late 90s. And we had less money than the decade after, during the 2000s, there was more money in research in Brazil. So during the 90s, there was not a lot of money. So that really, it was amazing, an amazing experience for me, because we had to do things in a very, we had to really bootstrap and do everything with very little. And that was really essential. I kind of draw from that experience in Brazil, where, we were rewashing gloves, and the pipette tips, and we had to pay for our own photocopies, and everything was really bootstrapping, and that really taught me, okay, well, we got to do it. We will do anything to get to do our science, to do what we want, and we managed to do it. Even though we had to wait for weeks for the radioactivity material to get cleared by the customs, so they had already lost a half-life, and everything hard, right? And that was an amazing school for me. And that I really think that having done this and having gone through those difficult times and knowing, yeah, no, you can do it. And those barriers don't stop you. And that was essential for me for the bootstrapping that I had to do for Universal Cells later on. Right. So that was an amazing school. It was really, really amazing.
So let me then ask you, are you still paying for photocopies today? Claudia, we again, a reminder for our listeners that we are taking questions, so please send your questions in the chat box privately to Pamela Villars, and we will soon get to them. Claudia, let me ask you, you are an entrepreneur, and we throw that word around very often as if there's one single definition, but I want to hear from you. What is your definition of entrepreneurship? How do you define it?
You know, I take it from the word, it's a French word, and the verb entreprendre, so to do something. For me, is really to undertake a task and to really go for it. So that's how I see an entrepreneur, as somebody who, you know, sees a problem and wants to solve it. And that's my definition of an entrepreneur.
Wonderful. Claudia, do you have a favorite scientist from the past, or a modern day scientist that you sort of get some inspiration from, or anyone in particular come to mind?
You know, I have so many scientists that have inspired me. I don't have one name I can, you know, tell about many different names. I think that each one with a different flavor that would inspire me in a different way. So it's a collection of great people that have been there and who are also doing science right now. I think that I get inspiration from a lot of sources.
So I'm going to assume your bio is amazing, and I know from, well, we all know from our own personal experiences that what we set out to do when we're in, you know, studying as a young individual, and even in university, we have these great grand ideas, and then things just go in a different direction, right? For better or for worse. I'm going to assume that for you it was not always easy. You had challenges. I want to ask, what is the most challenging moment that you've had either in your education or your career, and how did you overcome it?
Well, definitely the most challenging one was arriving in Paris with a 4-month-old baby. That was really the toughest time, and that was difficult because I was starting a PhD. You know, I always say, people say that it's hard to be a single mom because I had just divorced, and that was hard, and I had to take care of my baby. And people say that it's hard to go through a PhD, and I was doing both at the same time in a new country for me. And so that was a very, very tough thing. And I remember the day I was defending my thesis, and when I had just defended and I had gotten the highest marks, and congratulations from the jury, everything, the highest thing. And I looked back and I said, you know, if I've done this, I can do anything. And now this is, you know, I know I can do it. And that moment, you know, I think that you build your strengths by going through hard moments, and then knowing that you can go forward and go further, right?